brass knuckles, blackjacks, everything else. And then they also came armed. And so they would take militant action against them. The same thing, there was action taken against the Nazi Bund. But the police, you have a right to rally in the United States. You have a right to demonstrate. You have a right, freedom of speech. And so these gangsters who took violent actions against, they were arrested. You can't, if a person's holding a rally, like they had in New York, if you look at the movies of it, and I have movies of these rallies that they have with the Nazi salute, and they have Nazi flags right next to flags of George Washington and all this kind of stuff, and they're singing Nazi songs. Well, this is the 1930s, and they're German Americans or whatever they are. They have a right to rally, and there's no war yet. If you want to sing songs to Mussolini or to Hitler, you can do that. Well, you got these meetings broken up by Jewish gangsters. Hey, it's the Constitution of the United States, freedom of speech. You don't like what they're saying, so you hold your rally, And so you have those kinds of things, and the gangsters couldn't take this stuff. They felt that the Jews should be more militant. They didn't, and the average Jews were afraid of taking action. They were afraid of causing anti-Semitism and this and that. And the story that I write about, and I've written about others in the book, is Meyer Lansky. And he told me it, and I checked, corroborated it, and everything else was in the newspapers and everything. Everything he told me was true about this, that he was approached by a former judge, a Jewish judge. I mean, he was a judge, I happen to be Jewish, who told him that he felt that Jews should be a little more militant in their dealing with the Bundists, the Nazi Bundists. And so Lansky said to me, he told me the story, and I listened, and he said that he said to him the condition was he would do it, but that when he finished taking care of these people, that the new Jewish newspapers would not write about him in a derogatory way, call him a gangster, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was promised by the judge that yes, that would be fine. And the judge asked him if he needed any monetary help or anything. No, we'll take care of it. And he did. Rounded up Jewish mobsters and even some non-Jews who wanted to get involved in beating him up, and they broke up Nazi Bund rallies. He wanted to kill him, and the judge said, no killing. And so he said, all right, we won't ice them. We'll only marinate them, So there were no killings, but arms were broken, legs were broken, skulls were cracked, and then the Nazi Bundists demanded protection from the Jewish gangsters. And so Fiorello LaGuardia was mayor of New York at the time, and he gave them protection. His father was Italian, mother was Jewish. He spoke Italian and Yiddish. So who did he send to protect these Nazi Bundists from the Jewish gangsters? Black and Jewish policemen to protect them from Jewish mobsters. Well, the Yiddish press talked about it. These are not like us. They are hoodlums. They're gangsters. The Jewish community doesn't do things. Again, the fear of causing anti-Semitism, the fear of, And so Lansky was, when he told me about it, he started getting angry, because he remembered how it was. He said, they told me that, he said, and Rabbi Stephen Wise, went out and he said, it's not us, it's these hoodlums, these Jewish guys. He said, no one had ever called me a gangster before until they called me, which wasn't exactly true. But okay, I'm not going to argue with this man. He's treating me to lunch. And who knows, So at any rate, yeah, be nice,
Exactly.
Be nice to Meyer Lansky. Anyway, you had that, and they did take actions. In fact, one of the groups I wrote about were in Newark, New Jersey, and one of the men who was involved was a man named Max Hinckus, and his name comes across in the FBI files as well. He was a quote-unquote lieutenant in the Longies-Wilman gang, and I interviewed him, and his nickname was Putty, because when he was little, he liked pudding, and he couldn't pronounce it. He would say, Putty, I want Putty, and so he got the nickname Putty. Max Putty Hinckus. Even the FBI put his nickname in the file, that Max Putty Hinckus, lieutenant in the Zwilman syndicate and all this stuff. Anyway, he and others, including a Jewish prize fighter, Nat Arno was his name, rounded up tough Jews, and they were tough Jews in that generation. They're physical. Not talking about, today, all this stuff, but they were tough guys. And they broke up rallies. They beat their brains out. I mean, one of the incidents, they threw stink bombs into where the meeting was. And when the Nazis came running out, the Jews were lined up on both sides of the sidewalk with iron bars and baseball bats, and they were aiming for their heads. And they just clobbered these guys. Can you imagine that? I mean, what was going on? Well, the police had to do something. Actually, the police told them about the meetings. And anyway, I wrote about it, and not many people knew about it. And the man had cancer. Putty Hincus had cancer. And they threw a party for him, a dinner to raise money. And I got an invitation from the synagogue that was holding it, from the rabbi, and a personal letter saying, thanks to you, we learned about, the activities of Max Hincus at a time when, anti-Semitism was rife and the Nazis were running around, blah, 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 blah. Still had a letter that he wrote thanking me for bringing it to their attention that this man had acted to protect the Jewish community from the Nazis, and things like this. So a lot of things were unknown that I uncovered. Not that I'm a genius or anything, but sometimes when you do research, you find things that people don't know about. Maybe you read about the killings and the beatings and all this other stuff, but then sometimes there's another side to the character of these people. So, and I tried to write about that as well. They may have been bad, but maybe as this former reporter and newspaper owner told me, this Jewish man in California, he said he believed that in every Jew there's even the gangsters, there's the Yiddish expression, tintele Yid, like a spark of Jewishness, a little spark of Yiddishkeit that they can't eliminate, and or psychologically they can't eliminate, or they have it, and this feeling for their people in one way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean they didn't start their careers by not beating up Jews and robbing from Jewish pushcarts in the neighborhood and stuff like that. But as they got older, some of them, mended their ways with regard to the community, or tried to clean up their act, as it were.
Robert, have you ever thought of releasing your verbal interviews with some of the people?
I thought about it. I don't know, I don't know how to do it in a way. I've got these tapes, and I should go through them again. I thought of utilizing them. But, if I release them, I don't know. How will they be used? Will they be used? I don't know. I'd have to make sure that... it could be fun listening to them as you're driving your car, and stuff like that.
Well, in a book, you've obviously brought excerpts of things, but we miss contextual overlay and reading between the lines and the texture of the communication between them and you. And there's a lot in the verbal that you won't get in the reading, because in the reading, you're telling the story about it. It's referential. And not to cause any trouble or anything, I think that if there are one or two that are really remarkable, the sound is good, and it's insightful, obviously you have permission to do this interview and to use it to write your book. I don't know if you have permission to actually release the
I can do whatever I want with it.
Okay. I think that people would be very interested to hear from their mouths. There's something about... And when they speak this background, they're sitting on this history.
I'd have to figure out how would be the best way to go about this.
Well, we can talk about that later.
We can talk about, my son makes movies. He's in New York. Maybe I'll ask him, say, hey, Todd, what do you want to do? As it is, I don't know. But it's a thought.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, Robert?
People should buy the book. They'll get a kick out of it. The only thing I should say, I always tell friends that I give it to, signed copy, read it in the bathroom. Number one, you'll finish it. And number two, it'll be fun. It's a fun thing. So it's something that's not so serious that, you want to read it in a serious setting. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun because it's interesting, it's factual, and you've read part of it.
I read the whole book.
You've heard me talk.
I read the whole book.
So that there's humor in it and stuff. And
very much
interesting.
So.
I think that you found it interesting in one way, shape, or form, I'd imagine.
I found it very interesting, and also parts of it very shocking. Both.
Yeah, well, because you didn't know about it.
No.
Yes, I know. I know a lot of people said, I didn't know that. I said, well, why would you know that? I dug this stuff up. Most people didn't know it. And then they, like one of the interviews I gave, they started talking about that this particular individual that I was talking to on the tape was a strike breaker. And he killed a bus driver that was taking, strikers someplace or whatever, or strike breakers or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. And one of the people sitting at the table in the interview said, what'd you shoot him for? He said, well, he shouldn't have been driving them. The guy was an innocent man. The thought that they shot an innocent man without blinking. Of course, there's another story that I got where he's at a prize fight, the same individual. He was tough. And in those days you smoked, at the arenas, you smoked. This is back in the 30s or late 20s or early 30s or something. And the fellow, it was a Jewish fighter and an Italian fighter, and the fellow in front of him, sitting in front of him, was saying something like, kill the Hebe, kill the Sheen, kill the Kike, beat the... So he taps him on the shoulder.